Welcome back to another episode of the Dunces Podcast. We are back here. Isandro, what's going on, my man? How you doing today?
What is up?
You ready? You ready for today's pod, my man? You ready to talk some
Yes, sir.
Utah Jazz
Talking about my
off
favorite
season?
team in the whole NBA.
That's right. And basically, we're just gonna get into it, guys. I mean, there's not really much.
That was the
I wanna
most cheesy
discuss.
laugh. You're like,
Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to get this. We're already starting off horrible because my stupid camera, but I'm back. All right, but we're gonna start off basically jumping into this, guys. So this is gonna be like a kind of like a mini series. We're gonna talk about each and every NBA team, but mostly like the most important teams. And the reason why we chose the Jazz today is because they haven't really done much, but they've also done a lot. And I'll explain that in just 1 second. But for those of you who are living under a rock, the Utah Jazz have made some moves. One really significant one, one minor one, but it really started everything, which was the trade. Royce O'Neal to the Brooklyn Nets for a first-round pick. And then we also saw Rudy Gobert get traded to the Wolves for boatload of assets that we'll get into in just 1 second. But before anything, how do you feel about the Jazz's offseason so far up to this point, Isandro? You are muted, just want to let you know. But what do you?
I know a background noise,
Don't
but
worry about it. It's okay.
so far it's been fantastic getting what they got for Rudy Gobert because we all know that Rudy and Donovan weren't going to last together. We just weren't sure who they were going to give up first, if they were going to give up both. We'll get into that a little later. But the first domino has fallen. They got rid of Rudy for a haul. And if they got rid, and it's really good because if they got rid of Rudy for that much, like just imagine what they would get, what they're going to get for Donovan.
Right. I think, and for those who don't know who was involved in this trade, so we all know the Wolves, they receive Rudy Gobert, but in the other side of things, the Utah Jazz, they got a boatload of players. They got Patrick Beverly, Malik Beasley, Leandro Bolmaro, Jared Vanderbilt, Walker Kessler, and 4 future first-round picks, if I'm not mistaken. Do you think that the Jazz didn't get enough, at least for right now, for Donovan Mitchell? Or did the Wolves give up too much
Gobert.
for Rudy Gobert? Yeah.
No, yeah, they got more than what they probably should have gotten. I think it was a great trade. All those unprotected. They got perimeter defense. It was just an all-around amazing trade for the Jazz. They couldn't have gotten. This was the best package they could have gotten possible. So I'm happy with what they got. They're probably really happy too.
I agree because of the picks and all that stuff. Obviously, they're looking towards the future. My only concern with all this is what's next for Donovan. I mean, you hear some rumors that they're open to listening to trade offers and stuff like that, but I mean, they kind of gave up. Well, they gave up Rudy Gobert, which is great. They got everything that they needed for their future, but as for right now, they don't have anything alongside Donovan. I mean, Bogdanovic is getting older, Conley is getting older, and now what's next? Or should they trade Donovan and Mike Conley and like completely start the rebuild, or should they use these assets that they got in that Gobert trade to trade for a star? Maybe not this season, but maybe this upcoming season. What do you think?
I think, should they wait it out 1 year to see how the NBA landscape looks in a year? Because if we're talking about just right now, there's not really many options. There's not really any avenue they can go down. If we're looking at it kind of near, like short-sighted in a way, they should trade Donovan and trade the valuable assets they have just to really go all in on the rebuild, because they have already a good start. And if they do choose to go down that path, it would be perfect for them if they feel like that would be the right decision.
Is this like off season so far for them? Like just based off of this trade, do you think it's like a little Celtics-y vibes, like 2014, 2013 Celtics vibes, when Danny Ainge traded aging veterans, players that weren't really doing much for them, just kind of keeping them in the middle of the pack? Do you think that this trade kind of like it's jump starting a rebuild for them, like giving them like that Celtics, we're getting players now just to build for players like Victor Wembanyama, who's projected to go first overall next season, and to, start building that. Like, is that what Danny Ainge is like hinting at, or what do you think?
It could be because before the Rudy trade and maybe a little after the Rudy trade, they weren't even picking up the phone for Donovan. And now
Right.
there are reports from Woj coming out that's like, oh, they're actually listening. It seems like now they're warming up to the idea. And Danny Ainge, you see how you see it starting to work. So I really think that they're leaning into it. Maybe they're not fully committed to
Right.
one direction yet, but you kind of see like the gears are turning.
And the Will Hardy hire, I think, it was a good hire for a young coach finally getting the chance, the opportunity. Coach
So Will
under
Hardy's their
Brad
coach now.
Stevens. Yeah, he's their head coach. He was the former Boston Celtics assistant alongside Ime Udoka. He was also there, I believe, during the Brad Stevens era. A lot of this is pointing to a Jazz rebuild. But again, I'm going back to those assets that they have. They can trade for another disgruntled star in possibly a year. Bradley Beal could be a potential target for them. Picking up players in free agency. I mean, Utah, who really wants to play in Utah, but like we saw, we didn't expect Bogdanovic to go there. Now, I'm not saying Bogdanovic is a big name, but we didn't expect him to go there. And when he did, they were actually a really solid team. But now they have a new voice, a younger voice. He's around 32 years old, which was around the same age that Brad Stevens was when he got hired as the head coach. It's kind of just, it's turning like, it's looking like they have to trade Donovan. Like there's no other choice. The Donovan Mitchell trade must be done this upcoming season. And I saw a stat that Donovan Mitchell is basically like another AI because AI, I mean, the only difference is AI took his team to the finals, but in Donovan's case, he shows up in the playoffs. The rest of the roster doesn't. And it's a glaring weakness for them. And they kind of kept the same guys in Bogdanovic, in Rudy Gay, in Jordan Clarkson, who Clarkson was atrocious in this past playoffs. So what should Donovan want? Should he want to be traded? Or should he, stick it out with them for 1 or 2 more years to try to see exactly what they're figuring out behind the scenes?
For sure, he should for both sides. Now that I think about it, I think it benefits Utah and it benefits Donovan. Because I was just thinking, like, Donovan's a great player. You're not going to win a chip with him as your best player unless you have an amazing supporting cast with him. He's probably better as a second option, but that's not really on the table with what you have. So the best thing to do would be to go in the opposite direction, or the direction that as we talked about, that they're already leaning in. It benefits the team and it benefits Donovan because he's going to be going to probably a contender, or at the very least, a team that he will make into a contender.
Right.
So I think yeah.
Yeah, and just for those who don't know, this is what their potential roster is looking like. And if you know any of these names, please let me know because, I mean, I do because I'm a basketball fanatic, but if you don't, I completely understand. So they got Mike Conlye, Donovan Mitchell, Bogdanovic, Jared Vanderbilt, and Udoka Azubuike as their potential starting 5. And then off their bench, Patrick Beverly, Jordan Clarkson, Malik Beasley, Rudy Gay, and Walker Kessler, a rookie. If I'm Donovan, I don't want to play with that roster. I'm sorry. Mike Conley, he's a solid player, but he's older now. He's 35,
It's
36.
not a bad roster. It's a solid roster, but in terms of contention, like,
yeah, it's just wasting his time.
You can't even win with what you had before. How are you going to win with this?
Exactly. And now it's a whole new coach, whole new scheme of things. And trading away one of his best friends and then waiving one of his best friends, trading away Royce O'Neal, who's one of his good buddies, and then waiving Eric Pascal. It's like a clear indication to them just saying, you know what, guys, you got to get, like, Donovan, you're done here. So if you're Donovan Mitchell, you hear the name, you hear the team, the New York Knicks, you hear the Miami Heat. Now you're hearing Brooklyn as a potential suitor for Donovan. If you're Donovan Mitchell, what team do you think would be best for you?
Probably the Heat. But if you're the Utah Jazz, you want him going to the Knicks.
Why is that? Right? Do you have the best trade package for them?
Oh, 100%. I think I saw some guy. So he had like a check or something on Twitter saying that if they trade for Donovan, they're not giving up RJ Barrett. I'm sorry, sir.
No, they're giving up RJ Barrett.
They're giving up RJ Barrett. I'm sorry, sir. It's not physically possible to get unless I don't. There's no way.
If they do give up RJ Barrett, I think both teams would be really happy with that. Because, yeah, RJ Barrett, he's a good player. He's a good, solid young player. And he really showed out the last couple of games of the season, right? But I think a trade would benefit him because he would start in a brand new system. It would kind of be his team, whereas in New York, it's been more like Julius Randle and all that other stuff, right? So now that I look at it, the Knicks would be a good team for Donovan because now they just got Jalen Brunson, a player that torched them in the playoffs, right? So their backcourt would be horrible, but they have a solid foundation they could have with Donovan Mitchell there in New York. But if I'm Donovan, and I'm not saying this as a Nets fan, but I think Donovan Mitchell should try to make his way to Brooklyn, so that Ben Simmons gets out of there, and then he kind of restarts everything in Brooklyn. Now, will he be in the same situation that he is in Utah right now? Yes, but Brooklyn is a bigger market than Utah, so I can see something like that. Now, the best obviously is Miami for a championship. Miami, they have
Yeah,
a
but do
solid
they have the
package.
assets
Tyler
to?
Hero, no, they do. I say Tyler Hero, but then it comes down to money. How is that money going to work? Are you going to trade Kyle Lowry? Do the Jazz even want Kyle Lowry? So it's a little bit tough. But if I'm Donovan,
The Heat are getting Donovan Mitchell. They don't need Kyle Lowry. They got Kyle Lowry to kind
no,
of
I
lift
know
the
that, but
burden
I'm
off of
saying
Jimmy. But
would the Jazz even want Kyle Lowry in that aging contract? You know what I mean? So it's
you got Mike Conley.
exactly who I also wanted to discuss. What do you think he should want? Should he want a trade out? And what team would be good for Mike? What do you think?
I don't know, man. I feel like he's already at that stage in his career where
He's
he
a
could just
backup.
coast. He
Yeah.
could be a good back. Is he making back? He's making more than backup money. He's making starter fee.
I think it's like 20 million, so it's not a
It's
lot.
20.
I think it's 20 or 18, something like that.
Oh, okay. That's not bad. That's not bad. It depends. It depends. I think right now the main focus should be Donovan Mitchell because I really think they should trade him, and then we'll see from there. Because if they trade Donovan Mitchell with what they're going to get, it really doesn't matter where Mike's going to go. It really just depends on him if he wants to stay or go. They've already gotten the assets that they needed. They're going to be rebuilding. Maybe he can stick around to teach the young bloods that are coming in, to still make this team somewhat decent. If they don't want to completely bottom out, because technically they don't really need to completely bottom out because they're going to just get all these picks. They already have the picks from Minnesota. They're going to get the picks from the Donovan trade.
Yeah. And
so they can still
you're like lagging for me, my boy. I'm sorry.
Remain relatively competitive while still benefiting.
Yeah.
Did I
you're
cut
lagging
out?
for me. Yeah, a little bit. But it's okay.
Did you hear me trash the Nets or no?
I didn't. You didn't trust the Nets, but it's okay.
I didn't.
No,
that's okay.
It's okay. But I did want to discuss a little bit on, and we're definitely going to get into more detail with it when we talk Minnesota side of things. But for Rudy Gobert and the Timberwolves, do you think this is like a win now trade or like what are they thinking in Minnesota? Like, do they actually think that they could win with Rudy Gobert? Like what do you think?
Yeah. I wouldn't say they're contenders per se, but they were fighting. They were a solid 7 seed. Like they weren't going higher, they weren't going less.
Right.
And their defense wasn't even good. So now with a good defense, they're easily a top 5 seed in the West, which is they're on par with the Memphis Grizzlies, Ja and Jaren Jackson taking another leap. I don't see Jaren Jackson taking another leap with the injuries. I underrate him immensely. But Ja doesn't take another leap. They're on the same level because Anthony Edwards is definitely going to take another leap. He'll be in his 3rd season. Yeah. So I really think this is going to be a top 4, top 5 team.
See, I think they will be too, only because I think teams won't be expecting them to be so good because they're looking, you got 2 big guys that can't move laterally. But I think that they'll work during the regular season. Now, once the playoffs come, that's really where we're going to see Anthony Edwards shine because it's Anthony Edwards' team. It's not Cat's team. It's not D'Lo's, and it's definitely not Rudy Gobert's. It's what's his face? It's Anthony Edwards' team, and I think it's a solid trade for him, for Anthony Edwards, because now he has 2 bigs that he can trust. One on the inside, and then one from the outside. Look, Cat is one of the best big men to shoot. It's obvious. He won a 3-point contest,
shooting big
and
man
in the season, he's just that good. His playmaking is going to take another leap. D'Lo, he's the one that concerns me. But if you remember back in Brooklyn, D'Lo had the best pick and roll with Jared Allen. It was one of the best in the leagues. Now he has the best rolling big man in Rudy Gobert. statistically speaking. So maybe that might help his game out too. And maybe, it'll like alleviate a lot of pressure that he might have had, especially with that horrendous playoff performance that he had. But again, we'll get into that in a lot more detail once we talk to Minnesota Timberwolves and we look at their side of things, more in depth and what their offseason was like. But overall, Isandro, what grades do you give the Utah? What grade do you give the Utah Jazz offseason so far? Because again, they haven't signed any. They're the only team to not sign any free agent. That's baffling. They've only made trades. So what do you think?
That'll probably bring them down a letter grade. I would say B+, because they fleece Minnesota with that Rudy Gobert trade. Yeah. But they didn't sign anybody, so it can be higher than B+ for me.
Yeah, I will say B, pending A, depending on what they do with Donovan Mitchell. Like if they decide to use those assets and trade for another star, who that star is, I don't know, but whoever it is, whoever they bring in, hopefully it could be like, okay, this guy is a great pairing alongside Donovan. They're definitely going to win something. Or you trade Donovan and you get a massive haul for him. And now it's like, okay, this is the rebuild, A+. You get a good player alongside Donovan, make him happy. That's going to be another A+. It really just depends on what way they can go. But I really don't see them failing. The only way they fail is if they don't sign anybody or if they don't bring anybody to play with Donovan right now, because then it's just a wasted season for him. And then you're going to see him get a minor ankle injury, and then he's going to be out for the rest of the year, because what's the point of him playing? Might as well tank, get that number 1 pick, Victor Wembanyama, and then see what happens there. But I don't know. Danny Ainge has a lot of stuff up his sleeve. He's always had that in Boston. I guarantee you he has something up his sleeve now. And don't sleep on the D Wade, being a part of the Jazz organization. We all know D Wade wants Donovan in Miami. Even though he works for Utah, he loves his Miami blood. So I can really see Donovan.
Well, he's going to try to get what he can out of Miami. So it'll be the best of both worlds,
Yeah. So we'll see how that goes. And the reason why this video might be a little bit faster, a little, shorter, just for those listening or watching, or whoever you are. The reason why is because this is how these videos are going to just be like. I mean, there's going to be getting straight to the point. The Nets might be a longer one because there's just so much going on in Brooklyn. But that's how most of these teams are going to be like. They're going to be quick, to the point, getting into the free agency stuff. And the reason why I wanted to talk about Utah is because it's probably one of the biggest trades so far in this offseason. And
there's still more to come from them.
And there's still more to come from them. Yeah, so there can definitely be a part 2. Depending on what happens, but we definitely wanted to talk about Utah now, and there's definitely going to be way more videos coming out soon. And podcasts. So please, stay tuned. So please hit the like button down below, share it, auto tune it, do whatever you want with it. Make sure you shout us out everywhere. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, we're on there. Shout us out on Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, everywhere. We're on there too. Not Snapchat. We probably should make a Snapchat, but we are on every station that you need. So please like, subscribe, and hit that like button down below. And peace.